So what was the fundamental problem here? Travis would have bad experiences with people, and then he'd feel stupid and awkward, and then he'd feel angry at himself for handling the situation poorly, and then, after all of that, he would invariably find himself thinking the same thing. He wouldn't have felt so stupid and awkward if that other person hadn't forced his hand. Travis knew that it was a logical fallacy and that the other person had never truly forced him to do anything, but he always found himself feeling that it was more the other person's fault than his own. And hey, as long as the entire objective of his journey was to spare his own feelings, he figured he might as well operate by his feelings. So Travis decided that if these occurrences always just ended with him being angry at the other person, he should just cut out the middleman. Travis was walking through a construction zone. The block that he was walking on was closed to cars, and the street that he was about to cross was backed up in one direction. Travis arrived at the intersection, which was usually a four-way, but today was a three-way. The light was green for Travis's street, and although there were cars trying to turn in front of him, the crosswalk signal said he could go. Travis was nervous that one of these people wouldn't give him his right-of-way, but he told himself he was worrying too much. Nobody was that evil. Travis was thinking to himself that it was a good thing that there was major construction, because the road needed fixing and the workers needed work, when his internal monologue was disrupted by a loud honking sound. Travis turned to see that it was coming from a driver who was driving around him to turn left. As the driver went behind him, Travis turned the other way to get a good look at the guy. Travis was ready. He knew that traffic was just like the internet. People were mean to each other because there was a physical barrier between them, and their subconscious minds didn't think that they were interacting with real people because they couldn't see the real people they were interacting with. So Travis decided to scare this motorist by reminding him that Travis was a human being too. Travis made eye contact with the motorist. And the son of a bitch maintained eye contact with him, and glared back at him, and made one of those hand gestures that seemed to say, "Are you literally mentally handicapped? Because if you are, I would like you to kill yourself so that no amount of the finite quantity of resources on this planet will be wasted on you." This all happened while the man's car was still moving, and because it was warm out and the man probably had his air conditioning on, the car's windows were closed. Travis and the man did not speak to each other, but they had communicated all the same. Travis didn't know what to do next. The motorist was supposed to feel embarrassed that Travis had dared to meet his gaze and demand that he be dignified as a living person. He wasn't supposed to throw it back at him. As the man drove away, Travis realized he was losing his last opportunity for having control over his situation. So he gave the man an exaggerated dirty look, which looked something like this. Travis didn't know what else he could have done. Now it was the person in the car Travis was crossing in front of who was honking at him. Startled, Travis checked to see if the cars had started moving when he wasn't looking. But sure enough, they hadn't. This other driver was also just honking at Travis for crossing the street when he had every right to do so. Travis realized this was his second chance to see if he could make an unkind person regret giving him anxiety. He got an adrenaline rush like he'd never felt before. He was actually going to confront a mean person. "Hey, do you have some kind of problem with me or something?" Travis screamed, making eye contact with the driver through the windshield. Travis's question came out sounding kind of squeaky because he had decided to speak on short notice so he didn't get the proper breath support. So he decided to say something else in a less adolescent sounding voice to see if that would make the driver take him more seriously as a person. "You realize I'm allowed to cross here, right?" The driver answered. Travis realized he wasn't getting through to the driver, so he went around to the car's passenger window. He would have gone to the car's driver's side window, but remember the traffic was actually moving the other direction, so he could conceivably get hit by a different car. Travis was going to have a chit-chat with this person because he was not afraid to die, but he wasn't that unafraid to die. Travis knocked on the window, and the driver opened the window just the tiniest smidge.
"What the fuck do you want?"
"Stop honking at me."
"Get out of the road, you retard."
"You think I'm a retard for crossing the street?"
"I don't talk to retarded people."
"You're the one who doesn't understand that I'm allowed to cross the street here."
"Are you calling me a retard?"
"You called me a retard first. Did you expect me to just take it?"
"If you're not retarded, then why don't you have a car?"
"It's called exercise. It's good for you."
"What are you, poor?"
"You know what? What if I am?"
Get a job, you fucking retard. Fucking white trash hick. Get away from my car before I call the police.
But before Travis could decide whether to ask why she thought the cops would care, or whether she realized she was wrong yet, the driver rolled her window back up. Travis's heart was still racing, though, and the traffic still wasn't moving. He still had a chance to decisively win this conflict. He had the brilliant idea to go into but then, something caught his eye. In the other lane, and a car back, a beat-up white minivan had its windows open. Behind the wheel was a middle-aged woman, who was staring directly at Travis. She wasn't switching between looking at him and looking at the mean lady in the sedan. She was only looking at him. And she looked terrified. In that moment, the adrenaline rush stopped immediately, and Travis felt as though all the blood drained out of his body. He stepped out of the street and purposefully walked off in the wrong direction, just away to be from all the cars who might have witnessed him lose his composure. Whether or not Travis was truly the bad guy in that situation was irrelevant. Whether or not he was correct in his assertions was irrelevant. Whether or not that had been the first time in his entire life that he had lost his temper on a stranger, which for all you or I know it might have been, that was also irrelevant. For all his desire to not let a stranger unjustly mark him as being stupid, or weak, or unworthy of human decency, there was now at least one person out there who thought that he was worse than all of those things. Then Travis had a thought. What would the person he wanted to be do in a situation like that? How would they conduct themselves? Travis wasn't completely sure of the answer, but he thought it might be something that they would placate the other person, probably being calm, cool, and collected, and not escalating the conflict in any way if they could help it. Trying to win the person over instead of pushing them away, treating them like a difficult partner he needs to help solve a difficult problem, as opposed to an enemy to be done away with. It would be hard, but anything worth doing in life was hard. Isn't that what they say? Awesome, so now the next time that Travis had an issue with a stranger, he had a new strategy for how to deal with them. And the plan might have a learning curve, but you know what? When he figured it out, there would be guaranteed results. Nothing could go wrong. Right?